part of the record, shouldn't have been accepted. All of these should have been possible because we didn't accept or vote on any. one
Okay,
of
I'm
these
ready.
things. So,
Ready to start? I'm gonna hit,
Okay,
it is.
we're recording.
Because if he's not,
we're,
then.
okay, I'd like to open the meeting, please. And call to order in attendance, Ann Kelly, Joan Walker, AJ Miller, Joe Paradiso, and John, how do you pronounce your last name? Lamarandi? Lamarandi. And we also have people in the public here. I don't know if you can see them, but it's Bill Stableford, Scott
Scott Cochran and Austin
Scott
Hall.
Cochran and Austin Hall. Got their names crossed there for a second. And John Coppolis from Colliers. We said we were going to start with a moment of silence for September 11th. I know there's probably still something going on at the at the Green. But I think if we should start here for a moment just to remember the souls who were lost. Thank you. The item 3 on the agenda is public comments. Any of the Scott, Bill, Austin, anything you'd like to add?
Thank you at this time.
No one's on.
No one, is anyone on? Okay. And approval of the minutes from August 22nd. I looked at them. I did not necessarily have anything to change. Any additions or corrections to the August 22nd meeting minutes?
Yep, so move to approve. Second.
Favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous? Oh, I should note in the call to order that Dave Spurley is not here and not available tonight. I spoke to him later. I spoke to him earlier, rather, and he will not be joining us. Liaison reports. I guess that's normally Al, but Al's probably on the green at the moment.
Yeah, they're at the memorial.
So we'll move over that, and if Al has any comments, he can certainly put them in any time. Invoice packets and budget line transfers. Are there any?
Nothing.
Okay, thank you. There's a Colliers update. Yeah, why don't you go ahead, John? You have a specific update to
Couple of minor things. I handed out the updated milestone schedule to those that are here. Those on the video, just updating this, adding in a couple of the more recent things that have occurred, such as, I guess, the Iverton Theater Tour occurred. And then this is also tentatively showing the time schedule if the approval to go into DD were to be issued at tonight's meeting. So these dates are tentative. You'll note on the far right column regarding the DD and CD phases that is tentative. And again, that's based on potential decisions in the meeting tonight.
Actually, I skipped over the chair comments. And I did have some comments, so. Hello, Al. In the chair comments, I did get a contact with Eversource, and they provided us a contact person for doing any design work for the HVAC system. He is, it's the same person, she is the same person who's working in for the school committee. And they also have, there was also will be a contact for designing the service if we need any updates in service. But that would be something that I think would, matter of fact, they said specifically that that is something that should be done either prior or with the design development phase. So we will, I believe I said it to Tom. If not, I'll be sure Tom has some contact for that. Especially if we start design development. Eversource.
Eversource, yes.
I sent you the contact information in their programs.
That's great.
From the last couple of meetings, the Academy windows were listed as an issue. I called Bill McMinn. He said he would look into it. He hasn't gotten back to me, but he did say that it could be an expensive proposition to cover those windows with plywood. It's important to cover them for a number of reasons. One is to seal the building to keep the water from coming in. Probably been some water in the last few days. Of course, to prevent any further damage. And from some of our discussions, the window frames are actually going to be renewed or reused. So protecting the window frames is important, especially if he's going to be hanging something on them when they can't damage the frames in trying to protect them, in trying to protect the water ingress.
Joe,
Orange blue saran wrap.
Yeah, and
question.
And there was the ability to prevent breakage by putting netting over it. I know that was proposed, but that doesn't seal the water from getting in. It doesn't protect the window frames either.
Al, is that something that the board of selectmen can follow up with facilities and make sure that any broken windows get covered?
Yeah, perhaps, I think, Joe, a formal request from you and or this committee to the selectmen might be in order here.
You need that written? We need a motion, or do I just say, hey, Al, could you take a look at
I
that?
don't think we need a motion.
Okay.
Maybe you
And
can send an email.
I could send an email. And
Yeah, I think
could
that's
copy
fine.
Bill. But Bill said he was going to.
Oh, well, either way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
Joe.
put it-
on the waterfront, would we be okay with like tarping or a vinyl covering? Something like that? I mean,
You know,
it's got 6 months, 8 months? I mean, when do we need to last?
It's probably going to be a year.
Probably a year.
Yeah, it's got to get us through the winter. And I asked Bill about a tarp, and which would be vinyl. He didn't seem to be too encouraged by that. So I said I'd leave it to him to try to engineer it.
Okay. Yeah, just trying to think of weight and
Tar.
inexpensive.
Yeah, something, that's what I was thinking, something less expensive, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it up to him. The town has done all the other coverings. So not out of the academy budget, but out of we are the town, I should say, the town has done. It's come out of a different budget than the academy school budget. And Bill's handled that over the course of the last couple of years. Also would like to say that I would like, as a comment, I would like to be able to get to approving design development going forward tonight. At one point, we were scheduled to stop at 7 o'clock because we were in a different room and there was another meeting. But I've been told that we have enough time tonight to go ahead and discuss anything that we need to discuss. If we can come to an agreement tonight on how we get to design development, and we have the time to do it tonight. Welcome back to liaison reports.
I think the selectmen are very eager to keep this process moving forward. At the same time, we want the committee to be very deliberate and only move forward when you feel you have sufficient information to make some of these challenging decisions. So I guess it's kind of speaking out of both sides here, but let's get it right and make sure that the committee is comfortable with whatever decisions it reaches and is prepared to explain to the selectmen and the public the rationale for the committee's decisions.
On that note, I did get an email from the person who reports for, I guess, for the source, I guess it's the source. And he asked if we wanted to get together in the next couple of weeks. And since we hadn't gone to design development yet, I said I'd like to put that off until we get a little further. We have a better view of our better vision of how we're going forward. At this point, it's not. I don't want to go to someone and tell them, well, we're working hard at it, which is true, but doesn't make a good headline. Tom, do you have we have something further down on the list to go through the value engineering, the proposed value engineering and discussion of how to proceed with the design development phase. That's 12 and 13 on the list. Do you have an update that other than that, or do you just want to include it all?
I do not. That's really a key issue, and we've kind of put, moving forward on hold. We're only having that conversation. It's right.
If we just go straight down the list, then we'll get to design the discussion, the discussions next. But on the visit to the Iverton Theater, John Lamran, thank you very much for doing the minutes. I thought it was a very worthwhile visit, and what we had learned and what we saw. They have a very first class operation there. They've been doing it for a lot of years. Any comments from Joan? You were there.
Yeah, it's quite a building. It's a really good setup. There was a lot of things that they would have liked to do differently and can do differently because of the size of the building. But it's also, once again, a producing theater, so that's a very different scenario than what we would have in the community center, rather than presenting theater. So you'd have people coming in, paying for the space and doing their thing versus the town, putting up shows, so to speak. There are uses within the town for it, but the big thing she kept coming back to is not a lot of wing space. It's killer.
And storage space was pretty much all offsite.
Right.
So that was things that one thing she did not mention that is that the reason they can produce is they have an artistic director there who's been there 25 years or more, maybe. She knows everybody. She knows all. She's very experienced in putting on shows. She puts on first class shows that are all first class. They not only have a nice gate every time they have a show. They have 280 seats was there. Yeah, that's not the audience. The audience is maybe 250 or so, 260 seats. But they have donors that contribute a significant amount of money to their productions, and also they have the programs. They have full page ads for maybe it's just from the donors, but they have multiple sources of income that allow them to do that. I don't think we'll be competing You never can tell.
I'm not sure we're gonna become an equity shop. That would be tough.
Yes, that's what they are.
Some quick questions about these notes, if I could. There's talk of a lot of like dressing rooms and green spaces and like a lot of supporting spaces for the stage. How seriously do we need to consider spaces like that if we're going to have functional theater space, or are those more nice to haves for anyone that's more theater focused?
It wouldn't be a dedicated space like they have. It would be part of the multi-use space that I would envision on the first floor. That you would, if you've got the theater for the weekend, you get the use of 2 or 3 rooms downstairs or whatever. You do need some place to have people change. They can't just change on the side, and they need to be able to do warm-ups and things like that. So have the capability to go to the bathroom when they're not in the middle of going out into the hallway and seeing the audience. So having done it, you definitely need changing areas. You're gonna have lots of costumes. People will be changing during the plays many times. And a lot of times there's anywhere from, I don't think I've gone to a production lately that's been less than 10 people on stage. So it does require some space there. And that's one of the things I liked about the redesign of the family services all on the upper floor, was that the lower floor then had that kind of multi-use area that could be, garnered for that particular event. It also had access from the stage to go down the stairs to be able to do that. And every actor is used to going up and down stairs to be able to do those kind of things. So.
One of the things that impressed me was the lighting that they had. There's a lot. It's multifunctional. It looked like it cost a lot.
There were a lot of older fixtures, so those are, those fixtures they've probably had for decades, and they're still good. The non-LEDs are really good lamps. You just replace the bulb, and their light plot was significant. I asked to look at the current one, and it was significant. So to replicate that would be a considerable amount of money, but what we need to think about in the design is having the capability in the gym to be able to hang those things. So maybe you just put the structures in and then we build on building up that light source. Many theaters are going to straight LEDs. Many designers like to have both. As a designer, there's a different look when it's all LED than it is when the old regular lamps. There's a different warmth, you put different types of things in there. But and now they're even doing hybrids. I saw it when I went to visit my youngest up at Emerson. There was a hybrid between a leak and an LED. A baby leak and an LED, and I was like, oh my God. She's like, yeah, it is that weird. But they use it, and they're starting to kind of determine that LEDs are great for concerts and wonderful things like that. But when you're trying to really set a nice mood, the incandescents really do help quite a bit on that. So there's a lot of fixtures that would have to be, there's a lot of places to be able to get those used. We have a lot even at the barn. There's a lot of fixtures there. So there's ways, and a lot of companies that come in will rent fixtures because they have very specific design needs. So they'll bring it with them. When I do the lighting design for one of the dance troupes in Clinton, they bring in lights or a portion of the lights. Some of them are here, but year on year, you build up. You add, maybe you add 5 or 10 every year, and you get that level to be able to then cover it all. That would be a long term, or once again, a fundraising type of thing. But lights are, and the more critical thing is actually the boards, the sounds boards. There'll need to be mics, there needs to be soundproofing, all of those things to, really truly creating theater in that space. And that's where we would be looking to do some outside fundraising for that. So we've done that.
For all of those things, we do not need to supply super rigging.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. The rigging needs to kind of be there, the capability, the electrical structure needs to be there, the units don't necessarily have to be there. Or a way to get the wiring done for the electrical, having the capability to put something, I don't know, what the code is for it currently, and I'm not sure that maybe theaters, it has to have a safety, you have to get it through the fire marshal, but, a lot of things are just strapped in and hung, you're not putting extension cords into a power, but you do need the power base, and I actually, one of the pictures I took was of the amperage that's needed. If you look up in the barn, there's two very, very large breaker boxes that are significant to be able to support just that small theater. So that would be, to me, part of the core is to have that kind of base in there, not necessarily everything finished off, but if you're gonna wire for these kind of lights, you need to wire for that theater lighting, so that it's there in the future for when it's, when we get it up and running, and making sure that, that it's good. So, but I could do a quick basic plot, once I could walk through it again and kind of give a basic plot idea. How many electrics should be, I think there's probably, the electrics are probably still in above the stage, but in the gym, you'd have one or two near the stage and then one fairly far back to be able to shoot. So, just some thoughts there.
Anything else on hydrogen?
And I think, AJ, I think it was a good question that based on the limited size of our stage and the limitations on the ancillary space, I think there's going to be some practical limits to how big a production we could put in there. Ivoryton has a very large stage and 6 dressing rooms, and they said they've accommodated up to 22 actors in a single performance, and they only do 6 or 7 performances a year. So I think we need to just make sure as we look at potential for what could go in there, there's some constraints and limitations that will keep that cast size down.
But it's also a requirement if you're an equity shop to have X amount of space versus non-equity. And I'm thinking if we're probably going to do mostly non-equity shows. Because in order to do an equity show, it's a very different animal. So most of the things that are done in the community theater space are all non-equity. They may have an equity actor come in and do some things and pay them equity level, but it's not a quote unquote equity shop, so to speak. So, and that stage that's in the gym is fairly deep. I mean, if I remember correctly. I think I might even have. I don't know if it's in the current plan, but that. It's 764 square feet, so that's a significant size, quite honestly. But do you remember what? I don't have the one that had the actual sizing of it. So I'm talking the one that was in the gym, not the one that's going to be renovated for the front.
Doesn't have to scale either.
Yeah, and there was one that did. The
This one
one that the advisory committee did have all the depth and sizing on that, so.
Sure.
Joan, when you put install rating for lights in the gym, how far down does that go into the actual, from the roof down?
You can have it fairly high up because you can angle your lights down. So I know what you're saying. You need to make sure that basketball can be played and pickleball can be played safely. And I think with the height of that gym, it really shouldn't be a problem. It would just be a little bit more challenging from the design standpoint because the angles will be a little bit sharper. So that's why I was saying you want to space those out so that the angle can still, you just, a stronger instrument to be able to get to do this row. But the size of this gym is very small theater, quite honestly. It's not, it doesn't have the necessary, like if you go to Broadway, you know, they're shooting way farther than we would ever shoot any kind of lights from the audience in. So there are instruments that can be done. We just have to make sure that it's way head up. And if it gets hit, you know, by the time the mouse, I mean, no one's gonna be, you know, hopefully shooting a ball to try to hit the lights, and if they do, they get kicked out and they never return again. But, you know, you've got kids or adults that are just trying to play basketball, they're hopefully shooting for the ball, except for the long that might happen.
Full court pass.
Yeah, I'm Mary.
Anything else? Questions? The next is further discussion and possible vote on proposed value engineering savings to schematic design. You want to start with maybe what you expect? Actually, we probably should consider both of these together. What we think we should have in schematic design and what we need to get to design development.
Okay, so what I had sort of tentatively set as a goal prior to moving to design development was to find a significant reduction in the gap between where our original estimates were and what our current estimate is. Our current estimate was about 2.7, 2.8 above where the guideline target was. And I had indicated that I think that it would be good if we could find about half of that, or about 1.5 million value engineering before we moved forward to design development. And the reason I said that was essentially I felt that right now the drawings documentation is still conceptual and schematic in nature. We have a lot of information, but the estimators are very conservative in their numbers, and there's a lot of things they don't know, makes it difficult for them to estimate. So moving to the design development phase would help us really hone in on the project, give us more information so that we get better estimates done. We may find savings in that process. We'll also have a lot more information about the design, which can give us more information to make educated decisions about what's in, what's out. But I didn't feel confident moving to that phase until we closed our gap from about 20% to about 10% of the value of the construction project. So that's why I targeted about 1.4, 1.5. Now we've gone through this exercise and we've identified a lot of potential savings to the tune of about almost 2 million. I think it was 1.9 in total savings. Not all of these are considered acceptable. Some are maybe considered as alternates. There's a lot of factors that go into that. But I've gotten to the point where I really can't identify anything else that we could pull from the contract without really compromising the project and stripping any more away. So a lot of these, I think we've talked about, we've agreed are okay.
I disagree with that, first of all. The accepted list is not, as far as I'm concerned, we did not vote on that, and we did not accept the items that are on the accepted list.
But that's fine. We haven't had that conversation yet. And I'm not saying that what you have in front of us is rote, final. All I'm saying is that we have $1.9 million in value engineering, potential value engineering items that we could consider. Some I think are simple, and you should take today. Some I think can be add alternates, like the case of the geothermal system. But if through some combination of these things, we can get close to 1.4, 1.5 million, incorporated in the design development process as either alternates or accepted, then I think it's worth moving forward so that we can vet the process. And again, at the end of the design development phase, we will be going through a similar process of estimating. We will then have 2 estimators on board, we will have more eyes on the process, and we will have a stronger number to evaluate.
I took a different view.
Yep.
The
Can I just
dramatic,
ask one question? Did the folks,
oh,
do they have a copy of what we have in front of us?
No, I was gonna ask if we can either share a screen or email the document, please.
can't you?
Everything that's presented in hard copy here
Yes.
should be sent ahead of time so that, because we are hybrid all the time.
And John, since you put it together, can you send that out?
I'm gonna try it.
That's right, just because I had an earlier version of this, that's why I didn't. I didn't remember that. Right. Thank you, Jim. But I did, I came at this in a different way. Tom, John. I think there was a reason we picked it. There was a reason we picked QA. And it was, we liked the design. It was a design that was better than, I guess, every other one that we looked at. And I think some of what we're doing is stripping that, what we liked, away in the name of value engineering. And that disturbs me, and I'm trying to work around a way that we don't do that. We don't take away the stuff that was the good in the name of taking the make a value engineering.
I'll offer a dissenting opinion. I think if we can offer a equivalent design that looks nice and not spend money on architecture over design for architecture's sake, at the sake of losing programming, I think we have to consider that.
I would agree with that. And I think that the ability to get a community center up and running is paramount with the programming that we had put or designated to go into that building. The work that Bill Stableford did, the work that this committee did, there's a lot of good effort that went into.
And I think if I had to do, I will go with programming as well over design. Unfortunately, it's just, this is, you know, if we were at 500,000, we wouldn't be having this conversation, but we had to live through what we've been through, and the money has to be stretched, and it has to be stretched based on what the community approved to be in that building at the time that it went out. And also what has been talked about for the last 3 years about this building. So I think that that's to me, a very critical piece of it. There are pieces and additions that, you know, I think we need to say, you know, we haven't even listed any of the stuff we just talked about at theater. That's a total, that's an add-on. That I just need to get, you know, a rough number. What are you looking at to finish it off? And then we go and try to find the money for that. Same thing, you know, commercial kitchen level. Maybe it doesn't get in there right away, but it's stuffed in. But the other pieces of the programming that's required that are gonna bring people into this community center, which is the beach and rec things and youth and family services, need to be part of that design. And you and I talked about possibly doing two.
The, because right now, we're not talking about construction. We're not saying this is what we're gonna construct versus not what we're not gonna construct. We're talking about design and estimates. And I had I have a view that we should open up the design and estimates to a wider range of possibilities than just than just taking the value engineering and taking that out. The thought that I had was that we would design with one or two alternates of the entrance, what a building would look like and cost if we focused on the main level as first. Oh, no, actually first, it would be sealing the building, the ADA, the MEP. That would have to be accomplished first for the entire building. If we have enough money to do that, then what? Then if we, again, this was my concept, everybody doesn't have to agree. We would look at the main floor and say, what happens if we only open the main floor? How much does that cost? And then, of course, what happens if we want to add the upper level, and what happens if we want to add the lower level? What does both the design and the cost look like for those kind of options? And the reason is what I started with, that we picked the design because of the not only, and Joe, I appreciate your function over design, but we picked the design and we picked the functionality, and we're not going to have enough money to do it all. What we're going to have to face. And we can either take things out, or we could just take it out and we'd be done with it. Or we could look at phasing in, doing what we can with the money we have, and then phasing in some of the, being sure we have add alternates to the rest of what was in the design and to the rest of what covered what the programs that we went to.
No, I have to agree with the prior opinions about function over architecture. That the thing that's going to make it successful is having sufficient things that draw people to the community center to make it an active, vibrant center. And the more programming community space you've got, the more likely that's going to happen. And with an open-ended potential phase 2 that would have to be funded, there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. So
my fear is, my sense is that once we do all the things we have to do, that the amount of money left is going to be insufficient to do much of anything else. And I don't want to be faced with having done all the value engineering, taken everything out, both function and form, and then finding out that we still can't accomplish any of our goals.
Well,
And again, remember, we're not talking about construction. We're talking about design and estimate.
right,
Well,
but
I
design
think-
and estimating leads to construction.
Yes.
That's the next phase. So you have to do something that you're going to then build off of. And
Yeah.
my concern is that we need to have the design. You can't, the electrical requirements are gonna be based on what the design is. So, yeah, and so you can't just say, we're gonna rip out the electric and put new electric and put new heating in if we don't know what the design is, because you don't know how many plugs you need, this room, in this building, and things like that. So we have to do the design for all 3 floors, to me, And also, my feeling was, we were just like, no offense, but the design wasn't necessarily just the driving force behind my choice with bringing you guys in. It was also the experience, it was knowing the building, it was being close and having an understanding of the community as well and what everything, the players and what was needed for the building to be in there. So we wouldn't have to ramp up an entire team, which is why I think both of these teams are here. But to me, if we can save on the design pieces and bring in different, think outside the box on different areas, we've got to have a look and feel for all 3 floors. Even if the bottom floor doesn't have a ceiling, it's open space and, there's something, because you're building an elevator, I don't think you can get occupancy with an elevator that goes to all the floors if you don't have them finished. It doesn't make sense to me, and I think it would be a huge egg. It will go over, as my dad used to say, like a lead balloon.
Again, we're jumping ahead to construction.
But
Well,
design leads to construction, and we need to.
Hold on,
Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
There are
Pardon me.
pathways there are pathways for design that we can take that are inclusive enough that we will get to where we have to be. But again, there's a constraint, even with everything out, we're still $900,000 over budget estimate to estimate. And there's nothing that says going to the next level is actually going to make that $900,000 disappear.
We won't know that until we go there. Sorry.
We
Joe,
don't know
go
that.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say, you proposed earlier that we move to design development. But now if we're proposing that we look at alternatives completely departing from what we've sort of talked about, then we're stuck in schematic design. We cannot move to design development until we have some sort of idea of what we want this building to do and look like. So we need to get to a point where we are at least in directional agreement. For example, do we do that storefront window, or was that scaled back version with the remodel presented last week as an example? Is that sufficient? If we're going to keep going back on redesigns, we're stuck in schematic design. And by the way, that's additional money in the budget not planned for, that we're going to have to, it's going to be time and materials for the architect to go back and do all that. That's okay. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. Maybe there's something completely outside the box we're not thinking of here. But again, I heard us say, let's move to design development, but then I heard us say, let's come up with alternative options. We can't go into DD not knowing what we want to build.
I
Tom, any
agree,
thoughts?
Jim.
And with the where we are now, we'll be going to DD with over $1 million difference between what our current
And that might be okay.
is versus the, so what we're going to do.
That
is
might
we're
be
going
okay. We just go back to another round of value engineering and keep honing it down. Trying to keep change orders to a minimum.
Right, so question, is it normal to go through the next level of design development phase and then once again do another round of kind of value engineering when we get some better numbers and
Yes.
groups looked at? Okay.
You do another round of estimate.
Right.
So there'd be
So
2
there's-
estimators the second time through.
And in much more detail too.
It'd be much more detailed, and then based on those numbers, you could then, do additional round of value engineering at that point.
That 900 could be 500,000. It could turn out to be 1.2. But it'll be a more definitive number, something that we can truly work towards. To say then can we afford a geothermal system? Because we need to come with 1.2. They're more definitive numbers that we could actually work towards in a hard way. AJ, I cut you off before, I think.
Yeah, there's a couple things that are a little bit frustrating to me about this process. One, because I felt like we went into this without sufficient information, like knowing that the entire electrical and HVAC system was going to be replaced and was going to take that hit on our budget was an unknown going into this. COVID was largely an unknown going into this as well, right? From a budget perspective. So these are huge, huge variables. So we're kind of getting stuck in this place where we're trying to get blood from a stone. And I don't think it's fair to us or the community to say, we're going to value engineer down to the original cost and not tell you that there were these giant things that we didn't know about. I think it should be the people's choice to say, look, do we want, like, we can design a building that fits within this original budget, or we can design the original building with a larger budget. Like, we can redesign to a smaller budget, or we can get the original building for a larger budget. I mean, that's the fundamental choice that we have to make. And I don't know if this committee should be the only ones to make that choice.
Just an opinion, I think the only way we're going to know what the real gap is to get better estimates. You get better estimates as we move to the next phase. Once we understand what the gap is, we'll have a better idea of what actions we need to take. To me, it seems like it's a lot of speculation right now based on estimates that are at a pretty rough level.
Well,
Am
Scott, I think
I wrong?
the issue from my perspective is that once we move to DD, doesn't that more or less lock in the design and it will cost us more to redesign at that point? Tom, is that accurate?
Most of the things that are on this list, I would say, no, that's not accurate. However, one item on the list, which is the change in design of the lobby, you know, once you go down one path or the other, going backwards, you know, is a lot of redesign work. So for all of the other things, no, but for some things, yes.
So, once again, no wrong answer here. I'm calling it design number 1, design number 2. The first one that was way over, and we would move some add-ins, things like that. The design number 2, bringing the elevator in, design frontage. How difficult and how much more money would it be to do design development of both of those?
I didn't look at that. I think the answer today, but it's essentially refining 2 full designs for a portion of the building.
Right.
I could get that answer, but it's probably not significantly different than going down one road and then redesigning. So you might be better off just going down one road, and you know, if you have to redesign later, it's later.
Depending on what we decide.
As opposed to spending it up front,
And then
and then
And then-
potentially doing it up.
Got it.
Is the HVAC system, this is the same answer for HVAC? The geothermal versus air, other
not
forms of,
entirely.
pardon?
Not really. There are some differences, but mechanical system is essentially the same without the geothermal well system pumps. So it's very similar. Either way, you're just cutting out a chunk of where the cooling comes from.
So from the system on is all gonna stay the same as the base, like the furnace in the basement. Everything else is gonna be the same, basically. Do these guys have the list yet?
I sent you.
Does everybody have it? Can you guys check your email?
I was.
Oh,
I
oh,
thought you
Gene.
were posting.
I don't see it in my.
Oh, sorry.
Not yet.
Nope.
I just sent it to Jeannie, so I thought you just.
Oh.
Distribute.
I think AJ asked a very good question. Do we design to the, we design the building as originally envisioned? Or do we design the building to the budget that we, the limited budget that we have? And I suppose going down the middle, it's like walking down the middle of the road, right? You can go in both directions.
Well, the original design that the public has seen is gonna be different than what we saw anyway. The original design had an outdoor elevator, and so people were, you know, it was kind of like what we did with the old town hall with that outside partition on, it was kind of just sitting there. So no matter what, the public's not going to get what the concept was originally. So,
They may not even remember.
so I think anything that they're shown is going to be, I think we need to make a decision going forward, choose one of the designs. But, you know, I'm gonna strongly say that we need to keep both Beach and Rec and Madison and Family Services. They're not, they have to be in there. That has to be part of that detailed design development.
We're talking specifically about the fit out.
The fit out, not the furniture, not anything else. You guys might have to haul old furniture in or whatever, but to get the spaces correctly, you know, yes.
The benefit to the Beach and Rec and the Youth and Family Services fit outs are, we're gonna draw those no matter what. It's very easy for us to price it in or out. Meaning, I draw the full design and whatever this committee decides, whether it's in or out financially.
Okay, so you could break that
I
out
would
as
give
one
you
thing.
the tool. It's easy for us to draw that, but and price it both ways.
Okay. Then I think that should be part of it with knowing that, you know, it was part, this was part of how this project was approved.
Same goes for the geothermal system. It's very easy for us to draw it, bubble it, and identify what the cost associated with it is. in the design development phase.
And and I don't know if you got a chance to read the information from Eversource, but they should be able to help choose what is, what would be the preferred design, which, is there enough savings in the geothermal to make it worthwhile? Or is the clear winner, or is the IVR
Just
the IVR?
so you also know, there are other things on this committee or on this list that the committee could very easily include in the design. And it's bubbled and we get a cost estimate. My team doesn't have any issue drawing the items and identifying them as such, just as long as the committee knows that certain items, you know, may be considered for value engineering at the next phase of the project. You know, remove bleacher seating at the gymnasium. It's very simple. It doesn't matter one way or the other. Remove fit out commercial kitchen equipment. Very easy to draw it, put a big bubble around it. We know it may be in, it may not. All of the things on this list are generally easy to deal with, aside from the redesign of the elevator and the entrance.
We know.
And I honestly can't tell you that 350, that's our rough order of magnitude estimate. It may be less than that, maybe a little more. But, yeah, so without more information either way.
But that's not one that's easily popped in and out.
That's
That's
Design one or design two?
So that's kind of the line in the sand that we need to make a decision on. Because the other things are easier to pop in and out.
I talked to Tom about this, when we put the agenda together. But the point that we didn't mention is if we go to design two, going back to design was extremely difficult process. If we stay with design one and then decide to go design two later, it's easier. Presumably, that's not safe. But that's,
It's easier to move downhill than it is to move back up. So the original design has it's complex. It's more complex. So if I don't care either way. I did this exercise because I thought it was outside of the box and there's potential for saving. But if you move forward with the original design, and then down the road we say, all right, we're gonna strip all the bells and whistles out, and we're gonna go with the alternate design, it's easier for me to do that than it is for us to go downstream, design, put the value engineering concept in place. And then if you say, oh, no, you know, we really, we got more money, we want to go back to the original design or something along those lines, it's a lot of work to reinstitute all of that engineering. So.
I've got the spreadsheet that was sent, just to make sure I understand it. The alternates are things that are not in that total cost estimate. Is that correct? The alternates?
5 for 4.
On the far right, John?
The alternate adds, which is the second from the right column. And they are the last 4 things.
Right.
On this estimate.
But those are not in the 15,050,000.
That is correct.
presumably that would come out of another budget other than the budget for the academy school renovation.
Is that true also of the septic system?
I don't know about the septic system.
So because the.
I think you're right. I think septic system should be in our,
The
In
septic
the academy budget?
system has to be done, so it's not really an alternate. However, it was not originally anticipated that it was gonna need to be done in the referendum. And depending on where it's located, it requires, it's part of the cycle. So there's a conversation to be had about that one particular item.
But the other 3 are completely external to it.
That's correct.
I would suggest if we know it's mandatory, it has to be done. Why don't we go ahead and move it over into the reconciled cost estimate? It's just another one of the things we hadn't anticipated, but is required.
Where the septic, was that gonna be part of where, it was gonna be where the ball fields are, is that why maybe part of that, or is it gonna be in the building?
It will be in where the ball field is on. And it's easier to, you really don't want to put it in the same place as the existing.
So the existing one is definitely not useful.
That's our presumption.
Yeah, because I think that part of this, there's some money in CIP for the new playground. We may be able to add some of these into capital improvement because it is outside of the building, so it would just have to be a discussion.
What about the parking lot? That's something we have to do, isn't it?
Not necessarily within this budget.
I don't think
This
so.
is within this budget, so that's one of the things, so. Parking lot is nothing, and maybe that's something that we can get, well,
I
We don't
guess,
do a parking lot, or we just don't have to pay for it?
right, it has to be done, but it may not be part of this budget. So that, there are things that, so capital improvement program is designed for capital projects. Some of them are non-recurring capital projects. This would fall into the non-recurring capital projects bucket. And the new parking lot would probably be aligned with redoing the whole entryway and things like that, and that could be part of the roads project. It's a very flexible number. It's got probably close to $1 million a year in it now. So there might be some money to be able to do that, and that's something that we could look at in CIP. You know, and also the different fieldstone. So I think that's probably why you moved it over to the alternate ads, is because they're all kind of interrelated. And to me, that's like the outside project, so to speak, versus the
So I
building.
guess I'm trying to also be a little bit like conservative here and saying, what if CIP doesn't have the money? We still need a parking lot. We're gonna be the ones paying for it. And if we find that out much farther down the road, again, it's like
There's a
another,
parking lot there, it's just not in good shape.
I don't know if I would call that a parking lot.
You're planning it
Well, it is a parking lot, that's where there was parking there, it is there. I mean, yeah, you have
Oh,
this beautiful
I-
building, of course you wanna do that, but there's, and this is some of the things that we can, like you said, you can go to the town and say, okay, we put the money in the building. Now there's the whole outside that we'd like to be able to do, it's another $1 million, guys. Let's get it done right. I mean, that is a possibility, but, you know, and so is this, the patio scape, there's green there, there's, you know, it's,
If I can also add, to Al, I don't think he's here, the liaison from.
Yep.
Council mentioned that the referendum was very clear that everything in, from the building envelope in should be included as a part of this project. Everything outside the building envelope should be identified, because there's the potential that could be funded from a different pot of money, which is what you're talking about.
Right.
That's why we moved it into this line item. It's not, we're not ignoring those costs, but from an evaluation of the project cost perspective, we put it into a different line item. John Lamoran is correct. We are going to have to do the septic field. That will have to be accomplished. That is one of the 4 items that will absolutely have to really be accomplished. It doesn't matter to some degree whether it goes in this bucket or that bucket tabulation, because it's just there now because we believe it's part of the conversation associated with that work being done outside of the envelope. That's it.
So, Joe, I guess the question I would ask is, when do we sit down and have the hard discussion about all this stuff in a face-to-face meeting and decide what are we going to move forward with?
but this was,
Great question. So the gist of tonight's conversation is, I believe that conversation should be done at the end of the design development phase, because we will have more information, we'll have much more detailed estimate, and we will have 2 estimators working on it and working in conjunction to get that number really fine-tuned. I just recommended to the committee and the municipality that we don't necessarily move forward to the design development phase unless we have a vehicle in place to realize that a little bit closer to the budget number. 10% differential is normal at this phase, and I felt, well, if we can identify items that would get us to a 10% differential, then I feel confident making the expenditure as a community to move forward to the design development phase. We've identified about $2 million worth of things that I know we don't, the committee doesn't all agree with, particularly Beach and Rec and Family Services. But if we have those things at your disposal in the future, then it's a tool, it's a vehicle to generate that cost savings, gives you the confidence to move forward. Same thing goes with the geothermal. We've identified that cost. If we had to pull it, great, we can pull it, kitchen equipment and a number of other.
But the only thing that, it sounds as though the thing we have to decide on is design one or design two.
With the entrance.
Yep.
Realistically, yes.
Yep.
And that would put the full 1.9 million Vs, would leave it still on the table. Whereas if you pulled that out, then your number is reduced to about 1.55 or 1.6.
So basically, we're talking design one or design two, and guys, do you all know the differential between design one and design two? Everybody? knows?
Yeah, what was it, about 400 or 500,000?
350.
350
350?
as a conservative estimate at this point.
Yep. Okay.
But we'll know
So
more.
And you haven't. Where do you stand?
John, you can stop me on all of the discussion. That all things.
She was taking notes. Yeah, you guys are telling how right?
And John's out in California, that's pretty amazing.
So, every point that I would-
But Tom, what I hear you saying is that the POs are not cut, that construction does not start during design development phase, that it would get us to better estimates of what our real gap is, and we can make better decisions about what we need to do going forward, what the value engineering gap is, and we're going to have to make some hard decisions at the time we have better estimates. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But I think-
How long is this design development? What's the what kind of time?
3 months.
3 months.
Ish. And
Right.
then we'll go through this whole cost estimating and reconciliation process, which has taken us 4 to 6 weeks this time.
I'm sorry, I think I
This is
interrupted you,
correct.
Joe.
You're imagining that we will be going through that process in around February.
Yeah, through the end, through January is essentially the DD estimate phase. You know, factoring holidays, everything happening.
Right,
January,
January,
December.
February.
Holidays and things. But yeah, it's about 3 months for the design phase, and then another month for the estimating purposes,
So
which brings us to the end.
I know you don't want to ask the answer at very specific numbers, but I need to know, is it bigger than the bread box kind of number? If we do choose design one and decide, oh my God, we really needed to go two, what is the additional cost of that?
I can, I don't have it tonight. I don't know offhand. I mean, it's
Because
not
it's a
hundreds
design.
of thousands of dollars, but, you know, it might be 30. And, so just to give you a little more information about the estimating associated with design one versus design two. When I had it estimated, my estimator told me the value of the VE design was no greater than $250,000. But he would not put any factor on the ease of construction associated with the VE. So our team escalated the value to 350. I don't believe we're gonna get more than 350 out of that alternate design. We could realize less, it's possible, but I'm taking a leap of faith as my professional guesstimate that there are some savings associated with it being a little easier to construct than the other process. The way the estimators look at it is they look at the hard numbers on paper. We're just gonna pull this out and this out, but we gotta add this in, and that's it. So
Right.
I
It's
think
also-
it's possible we could get less value. It's possible.
But we also have the thought is it may be a greater cost with once we start breaking down walls too.
That is correct.
That's my biggest concern, to tell you the truth.
It
Because
is.
I was just about to ask about your level of confidence in unknown existing conditions.
Well, that's something we can do more exploratory work with during the design development phase. I guess listen, this was my idea. I put it on paper to try and save money. I thought we were gonna save a lot more money. I thought the value was gonna be somewhere between $500,000 and $750,000, and the decision was gonna be a lot easier. At 350 or somewhere between 250 and 350, it starts to make me wonder if it's really worth it. And the only reason is, from an accessibility standpoint to the building, everyone would enter the building at grade. You would get access to the elevator at grade. You don't have to go up a 60-foot long ramp to get to the elevator. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It meets code, it's viable. I don't know if the alternate solution is as good as the base solution. And I don't know if that's worth $250,000 to $350,000. If the number was $750,000 or $1 million, I would have said it's a no-brainer, go for it. So I'm torn about it. I thought there was going to be more value there.
Can we maybe just do a round, go around once? John, in terms of the two, I'd like a poll. In terms of the two entrance designs, which do you prefer, and maybe why? And then we'll go around Joe and AJ, myself, Joan, and Ann. Maybe Ann, Joan, and maybe that.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, John.
Oh, okay. I prefer design 2 because I think we need to save the 250,000. It gives us additional community space in the upstairs, and I think it's an acceptable solution for that additional value savings.
AJ?
I'm on the opposite side. I like design 1. I don't think the savings is going to be as drastic as we think it's going to be. And I think the design, has less utility. We lose that whole cafeteria area downstairs. We have to add the giant ramp, to Tom's point. I don't think it's as aesthetically pleasing as the other one. I know that's not what this committee's general agreement is, but it's very, very expensive to reconstruct a building. So I want to construct it in a nice way to start, and that's my opinion.
Joe? Joe Paradiso?
Yep, I think, if all costs were being equal, I think the aesthetics of design 1 are nicer. But, $200,000 to $300,000 on this project is real money, and it means programming. So I think design 2 would also be nice, equally functional. So I'd go for option 2.
So I'm not disturbed by the aesthetics of option 2, and I tend to be fiscally conservative, so that would be my choice.
I kind of mirror what Ann said. I'd rather try to get the savings up front as much as possible. And the honest to God truth is, it scares the living daylights out of me to break some of these walls. That's my biggest concern. I mean, if we knew more about how everything was constructed and what we were going into, but once we start breaking walls, I was just looking, our contingency is like 350,000 contingency construction, right? That's a small contingency to have to make up if we find larger issues there, so I would have to go with 2.
I would say I would go with 1, simply because if we had to go to 2 later, it's an easier switch. So if we really do need that money, we can get it at the time that we need it, but we still have the placeholder for design 1. We still have the aesthetics of design 1, and if we need it, we can go get that extra.
But I'm not horrified by that. I'm not horrified by that point either, it's just that we're 2 million over, so I can't imagine we're not needing that money. You know, there's, as far as I'm concerned, if we're doing aesthetic versus moving youth and family services and beach rec not in there, then that's the differential there. So that's, you know, I hate breaking walls. I've been burned. I have done so many DIY things in my life with my ex-husband. I still have an attic that is not a bit, that is not a finished because of what we opened up. So that's 20 years now.
Yeah, I've spent 20 years working for folks who have Cadillac visions and.
This decision is being billed as like aesthetic versus functional. If I remember correct, I don't have the design sitting in front of me, which I probably should have. Do we have, are there some functional things that we lose with design 2 versus design 1, or are they functionally?
No, they both function well. I think both designs work. I like design 1 better because you enter the building at exterior grade instead of having to go upstairs or a ramp to get in the building. But, or let me rephrase that. You don't have to go upstairs or a ramp to get to the elevator. So that's really the only functional difference, but both designs meet the intent of the building code. They meet the intent of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So, you know, there's no real functional compromise with either design.
And there was a cafe.
So
in the second design.
There is
Who's the cafe?
Second design, it's the lobby. It's, you know, when you walk through the seating area, so the cafe is less of what I would call a sort of destination space. It's really, we've put some furniture in a cafe space in the lobby or, you know, the entry space. Again, that's not a make or break element. I do this on every project, and it's good. It's a good exercise. It's healthy and it's important. I support that design solution. It's a good solution for the committee to save a little bit of money. I will literally be poking my eyeball out later if I find that this project is fortunate enough to receive additional funding, and then we can't go back to the original goal. But there's no path to that. There's no promise of that. So sitting from a position of knowing that there's no future funding, I think design 2 is a good, responsible choice.
But if we went with design and had to make a cut, it's not impossible to do something.
Right. And that's 30,000, which in the grand scheme of things, I'm going back and forth. He loves this, that I'm going back and forth right now.
Or do an excellent.
Yeah, I know, I've been going back and forth. But if you can, okay, so let's just, I just want to talk through my thought process here real quick. So if we do design one and we get to DD phase and we know that this is over, and then we could do a presentation saying, here's the design, this is how much money extra it's going to cost. Here's an alternate design that is the only thing that could be potentially cost savings here with, not a full DD, but kind of a show what was shown to us,
Yeah.
this is a change. This could save us this amount of money. Not knowing we're not bringing it into the walls yet. And if we do go down the one, how deeper can we get an understanding of the potential issues of breaking down walls? That's my other question.
During the design development phase, we can do some more investigative testing, explore the demolition in that crawl space area. But again, I'm being honest, the concern.
If you talk about the crawl space, though, that's. I guess that's not. You have to break into that crawl space in both designs.
In both designs.
In order to get to the basement,
But
the
not
lower
the
level,
other
you have-
floors. not the
Yeah,
other
but
floors.
in the first design, we're taking it all out. It's all out, and, putting the foundations in, straightforward once the building's demolished.
So I guess I agree with Joan that this goes back and forth. And it's not clear cut, but the path of least resistance still go with design one, and if you need to change at a future point, just put that in. It's all, everything that we have here as value engineering is still available after the design. So,
we have that flexibility.
yes, there may be a cost because you go through a redesign, but it's
More
not.
than 30.
I mean, look,
I'm thinking of a number
I'm
of.
just thinking my hand on something that's concrete at this point tonight.
I mean, honestly, when you put this on a 20-year bond, this is peanuts. $200,000 over 20 years split amongst all these people. I mean, I did the math. It's like 15 cents a person per month. Like, it doesn't save us that much. It doesn't save us that much money. Like, you got to think about it more in like terms of what this costs the town than like.
And
Yeah, but they're not giving us any more money, though. That's the thing. It's easy to look at it that way. We're not getting any more money.
we have
So
to make the
everything's a
assumption
trade-off.
Unless we can present, let me put it this way, we're not gonna get any more money if we can't present a logical, very transparent process that was gone through. This is why we wanna do it. You guys, will you make the decision to add X more dollars into this project in order for this to be able to happen?
And that X
Which
number
will
of
cost you no more
dollars
money.
is X number of dollars is much clearer 3 months from now than it is now. And we haven't thrown away we haven't gone back on the option of taking this and any other VE that we can get as we go through the next phase. Because again, I keep saying this over and over. We're not talking about the construction. We're talking about doing the estimates.
I guess I come at this from a different perspective, which is we have a fixed budget. There's 15.9 million available. That's what we have. And in the realities of where we're at today, how would we design it if we never saw a design one? How would we design that building with the budget that we have available? We probably would not have designed it like design one.
I don't think we can answer your question, John, with the level of detail that we have now in the estimate. How would we build it? That's the question we'll have when we get a better estimate. We could have, which is the way I'm reading it, probably.
I mean, John, I would have made extremely different decisions knowing what I know now than what, basically, the only thing we're keeping is the shell. Like, I probably would have torn the building down personally. Like, I probably would have torn the building down personally. If I knew now what I, that would have been a very strong recommendation. We've got all new electrical, all new plumbing, all new HVAC. Like,
That was pretty.
like if we're being realistic, like that's John, like there would be a lot of decisions that we would, I think, look at. But we've got to say, look, we're at a spot now where, look, if we did everything else, then the cost differential, like our budget differential is going to be 250,000, 350,000 one way or another, right? Like that to me feels like a pretty small percentage of, like, if we did every other value engineering thing on here, minus the things we know we have to do, right? But the only thing in contest, it feels like, is that redesign. Like if we're over budget 1.7 or we're over budget $2 million, doesn't matter.
Yeah, or if we think we can, if we think we can build the building for $250,000 more than we have in the budget, that's probably a pretty easy ask. But the trouble is, at this point, we don't know what that number is.
Yeah, we could be over budget on both numbers. Or
Yes, significant, to where, and without more money, we may not be able to build anything. So.
Well, we're gonna be renovating something. No matter what.
no, but if we go, look, if we were,
Please say yes, thank you.
How is it usually resolved? How does it go?
Different every time,
Different every time? Okay.
every project.
Good answer, Tom.
So, all right, first of all, anybody who's watching this, buy a Powerball ticket tonight, it's $500 million, we'll be all set. Secondly, I don't know, do we want to poll again? I'm going back and forth, I really am. I'm kind of now been convinced to go with one, and knowing that we have two in the back pocket when we get the real detail done.
That's, if I start this time, that's been what I've been saying all along. That we're not making the construction choices. We're making a choice on how we run an estimate and what details we want in that estimate. And that estimate can be, if we go with the number one, the first alternative, it can be reversed for real small dollars, if we're wrong, if something happens that we're totally wrong. But it can't be necessarily go the other way. If there was more money available, if the budgets, if the information in the next phase shows that, we don't need to do as much value engineering, then we've got the design that we started with and we chose. So, Joe, we'll go the other way around. You go ahead.
I'm gonna shock you, I agree with you. I've been butting heads with them for how many months now? No, I think knowing, I know 30,000 is still money, but knowing we can potentially reverse engineer, like if you had said 200,000 or 300,000, I'd be no. But you said, 30, around 30 or so. I could see, let's look at what the original designs would be. Honestly, I like the interior of the second design better, because it gets youth and family services on one floor, period, end of sentence. It's more tight, there's more space for programming, there's more space for community. I personally do like design 2 better, even though you gotta do a ramp to get there. And I know it's, even though one is to me a little sexier, to tell you the truth. It's a nicer look. But I'm willing to say, let's go down the path of one with the caveat that, you know, we're gonna got two in the back pocket, so to speak, which is kind of what we had looked at. You know, we had talked about doing kind of two, you know, getting into, what do you think?
So again, I mean, I could go either way. I'm completely on the fence about design one versus design two. Wondering if we went with design two and it turned out that there was funding available to do something else, would we decide to go back to design one? Would we add in other things that we may have had?
That, because we don't have a lot. There's no kitchen, there's no theater, there's no. It's a good point.
So, but also given the fact that for us to be making informed choices, that's another argument for going with design. So.
Actually do.
Abstain for this round. In other words,
There are no rules.
if there's agreement all the way around, I would be happy to choose what everybody else has chosen.
I think, AJ?
I don't think my opinion, I'm with you, Joe. I just like design one better. I think it's got a nicer appeal for the town. I like it better as a design for a community center. I think it's more inviting. So, and I think if we came in perfectly on budget with one or 250,000 over with the other, and we said, hey, we did this whole building, we were only $250,000 over budget.
Yeah,
I think zeros.
we only two.
Yeah, I think that's, okay. Joe, you next. Joe Paradiso.
I think at this point,
No,
trying-
Joe
Go
Paradiso.
ahead, John can go. That's fine.
Okay, go ahead, John.
I think at this point, trying to push the water back upstream is not going to be successful. The differential is big enough between the budget and the estimates that I think we need to move on and start working with the less expensive design. I think it's not realistic that we're going to be able to convince the town to belly up additional funds, at least at this point in time. So we're going to have to work with what we have and do the best we possibly can, delivering as much as we possibly can. Maybe it means we're driving a very reliable Toyota versus a high-end Lexus with all the bells and whistles.
Joe?
Yeah, I would just say, I feel like, again, if money wasn't the object, I'd go with design one. I just feel like we're kicking the decision can down the road. We know what's facing us. We know either way we're over budget. We've heard multiple times we're not getting any more money. Joe, unless you can go back to the Board of Selectmen and take their temperature and say, were you really serious about that? Not even $300,000 or $400,000 more. If we're just kicking the can down the road to make a decision, I'd go with two.
How about
In
if
this,
I
pro-
agree
in this,
to-
in this project, $200,000-$300,000 is a significant portion of the budget.
what would you think if I went to the Board of Selectmen and made that ask? Would you?
If they came back and said, hey, maybe, yeah, here's what we could do, then that changes things. But every meeting we've had so far was, that's the budget, that's it.
At this stage, there's no way to go back to the Board of Selectmen. Not at this stage with the rough estimating numbers we have. I mean.
If that's the case, I'm on board with option two.
Right, the school building was at design development, at the end of design development, they were back for more money. And still had to do some reverse engineering at that point.
So we're deadlocked at the moment.
Excellent.
I don't know,
Call Dave.
Call Dave, yeah.
I have a gut feeling, you know it.
Yep, here comes the cool.
Well, we're, yeah. There are arguments.
This has two sides that are heads.
It's special.
Um,
So, Joe, what I'm hearing though,
I mean, I am, I have never, I've always wanted a consensus from what we did. Even a 4-3 majority, even a, what, this would be,
It'll have to be 4-2.
it would have to be 4-2, even
It can't
4.
be a 3-3 split, so
Yeah, it
4-2.
can't be a 3-3 split, it can't be a 4-2. I mean, it would have to be a 4-2,
It'll have to be a 4-2.
and that would, so,
Why don't we all chew on it and come back at our next meeting and ask that everyone attend? Maybe, Dave could be there too.
How bad is that to our timeline?
I'm fine. I think that it's an important enough decision. Oh, wait, the next meeting is 2 weeks?
Oh, 2 weeks.
26th. So I'm fine with that at this point. I mean,
we know we're going to design development, it's
Right.
just.
What are we going with?
And I think
Where
we all
where we going?
just want it a little more too.
And,
I'm okay with that.
okay,
Maybe just a little bit of soak time is good for everybody.
Or my quarterback.
We're putting that towards the budget. Leave it there.
25 cents.
oh.
It's real money.
Put it in as an
So-
expense charge.
So in the, scheduling of this, no, that's last week's, budget. That's last week's, agenda. Sorry, looking at the wrong agenda.
Okay, sorry. We're at public comments now.
Yeah, we're down to comments. That's,
Do we have any public?
Nope.
Nope.
Scott, Austin, you want to add anything?
God bless you guys.
Okay.
It's a tough, it's a very, very tough decision. And we couldn't see everything on the list, so we just, I assume it's much of what was on the list before, in terms of what you were presenting.
Yeah, it's the same. Just different.
We will, then, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night.